You are now listening to The Mind of Tommy Buns, and this is Black Friday.
Black Friday.
Black Friday.
It is Black Friday.
Peace, family. I'm your host, Tommy Buns, and welcome to episode 5 of Black Friday, the podcast. Give yourself a big black hand. All right. Yeah, Happy New Year. Man, I took the last few weeks of December off, and I'm getting my January started, man. It's been a rocky, rough start for us, man. Sorry we missed last week. We don't plan to miss very many weeks this year, but you know how it goes, man. When you're really, really busy, sometimes you just can't get around to it. But it's some really, really exciting things popping, man. You know, our business just locked in another account, so give us another hand for that. We just shot a dope short film featuring my homeboy off his new EP, Dana Made Him Do It. He goes by the name of him. Y'all check him out at hustleismandatory.com. It's a dope little short film that explores the ideas of art from this rather prolific writer and MC, like I said, who's got his EP out, Dana Made Him Do It, on Bandcamp. It's on his website. It's a solid body of work. It's a great story that was inspired by the passing of his late aunt, Dana Augusta Wright. Rest in peace to the queen. So yeah, we got a lot of things going, man. We got another little short film that we getting ready to drop real soon. We're getting ready to go into production on it. It's called Solar, and it's really exciting. We really trying to push the envelope and do something innovative with hip hop and short film and film in general, to where, you know, it encompasses the actual process of making music when it comes to hip hop music, and exploring the cultural and historical nuances of the music that we sample as artists, and how we connect with artists from the past, and how we connect with music from the past, and ideas and images and iconography from the past, and then make that into this cohesive kind of like experience that we then express through the drum pads that comes out as the music that we now hear on SoundCloud or on the radio and shit like that. So we're really excited about this piece. It's really different, but yet and still it feels familiar, because we all have those experiences where, you know, inspiration comes and we take action off of that inspiration. So we going into production. We just finished the script on it. Me and my partner KD, my cinematographer, film producer partner, Against the Grain Films. You know, y'all gonna be hearing a lot more about Against the Grain Films as the weeks go by and as the years go by. So we really excited about that project, man. Tomorrow we got the Stribble and Strum play featuring my brothers, man. My brothers, I love them to death, man. Mike Towns and my partner Dewey Special. They're launching their first play tomorrow at an elementary school, and they have this whole, you know, business model of educational hip hop for kids, and it's such an innovative idea, because it's a place where hip hop artists don't necessarily tread, where you can make hip hop educational, but at the same time entertaining. And if anybody who knows me, that's exactly, you know, what I stand for as far as a business model. You know, I think that you should be able to make content that's entertaining, inspiring, and educational at the same time. And where you can have more, where you can have 2 out of the 3, I think that that's where the golden content is. It's either inspirational and entertaining, or inspirational and educational, or it's educational and inspirational. You know, any combination of the 3, or if you have all 3, that's when you're in a real rare space. So it's a lot of good things popping, man, this year. 2016. See, I knew I was gonna get stuck saying 2015, but 2016 is going to be a fabulous year, man, and I wish that 2016 is going to be a great year for everybody out there that's listening to this podcast. But yeah, so Happy New Year once again. Let's get into the show, man. So first up, to pill or not to pill? That is the question. Bill Cosby went to court a couple weeks back, and in regards to a 2004 allegation of sexual prowess without permission. The 78-year-old comedian stumbled into the courthouse shaking his head in disbelief, disgust, or he might just be at that stage where his nerves are all fucked up and he can't help but shake it. And it was so embarrassing to see dude walking to that courthouse shaking his head, and then he almost tripped and shit. And I was just like, oh man, that's terrible. It's a bad look, especially when Bill Cosby is the comedian. You know what I'm saying? It's like you see the comedian, like you're laughing at the comedian now. It's like, damn, it's fucked up, man. I felt real bad seeing Bill going through that, walking into that courthouse, dude. He pled not guilty to the charges, and since we've been seeing a lot of his lawyer, Monique Presley, who has been defending Bill rather professionally, and surprising enough, she's actually starting to turn public favor around for Bill after she's like articulating herself very clearly that the justice system doesn't work on what people think happened. It just doesn't work on what you think, because that's been the general consensus. Because all of these women, these 50 women, came out with allegations that weren't all sexual assault. They weren't all rape allegations that all these women had. Some women were saying that they were groped, they were touched, he looked at them funny. You know what I'm saying? They were walking out the bathroom and he was sipping his little cocktail. He looked over and gave him the Jello pudding, yeah, little face. And they were saying like, that was kind of creepy, but that doesn't mean that he raped them. So she's articulating that the justice system doesn't work on what people think happened or what was alleged. It operates on the facts, and the facts are, in the 1970s, when Bill admitted to giving women Quaaludes, the drug was legal. You could buy it just as easy as buying a bottle of aspirin. Plus, she notes that in 2004, Quaaludes were off the market, and the plaintiff never said Bill gave her the ludes. He gave her Benadryl. It doesn't mean that he didn't have Quaaludes left over from the 1970s, because, we watched The Wolf of Wall Street, but even though that was taking place during like the 80s and 90s, he still had some 10-year-old ludes that got him real loose that night where he took that Ferrari and rammed it all into people's cars and houses and shit. He destroyed that automobile. It was a beautiful car too. But it doesn't mean that he couldn't have possibly saved some Quaaludes from that long ago. But I don't know why a 68-year-old man would want to keep Quaaludes for 40 years. But I also don't know why a 68-year-old man would want to rape women either, if in fact he did rape this woman. So, in a heroic attempt to bag a big game, attorney Kevin Steele. Now remember this dude's name. This dude's name is Kevin Steele, and he campaigned on the fact that he was going to bring charges to Bill Cosby. This is what people elected him to be the Montgomery County District Attorney for, because of the fact that he was going to bring charges against Bill Cosby. That sounds like some cult shit. That sounds like some OJ shit, if you ask me. Like, I'm going to get the Bill Cosby guy because he raped all of these women because they said so. To me, that just sounds like, he's trying to make this is his legacy moment. This is his, I'm going to get the rapist of I'm going to get this big rapist of our generation, and this is going to be the biggest case of my career. That's what it sounds like. That's why I say it's like a big game. Like he went and Bill Cosby is Cecil the Lion to this dude. And so he reopened the case and filed the charges right before the statute of limitations ran its course at the beginning of the year. And in just the last week or so, 2 of the charges from Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2 were dropped, with lawyers stating that there wasn't enough evidence to continue. So this 2004 case looks like it's going to be dropped as well, as the major question for this story still remains, why did she wait so long? And now, when I ask that question, I ask that question to my queen all the time. Like, why are a lot of these women waiting so goddamn long to say something about being raped? And, she gets really, 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 really defensive and really angry when I say that, because, I understand, I try to understand where she's coming from. She's like, people are scared and they don't want to put their careers in jeopardy and this and that. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, man, I got 2 beautiful black babies, girls, right? And I'll be damned if they wait a year to tell me that some motherfucker raped them. Now, don't get me wrong. If you wait a year, it doesn't mean that I don't believe you, but it just means it makes it harder for me to defend you. You see, I can go on some vigilante shit, of course, and go kill these motherfuckers. Of course I could, like any other sane father would. But obviously we have to follow the protocols of the justice system. So that means we have to file a police report. We got to go through the same shit that these people are going through against Bill Cosby. And now we have to prove that this situation happened. There's no rape kit. Was there a rape kit? So there's a lot of logical questions that come into play. And it's funny. It's weird how you get into these arguments because of the fact that because of the fact that you're not a lawyer. But lawyers ask the questions. They're not asking questions that only lawyers ask. They're asking logical questions. These are commonsensical questions. Why did you wait 1 year before you filed a complaint? And now, mind you, there may be a rape kit on file. There may be a lot of stuff that was disclosed in that deposition that we don't have access to. So, and then this deposition was leaked illegally, because this case was essentially dropped. They weren't supposed to, bring forward this deposition. So all of this stuff, if you ask, from what it seems like, is inadmissible in court. So, like I said, I always get angry responses when I ask that question, almost as if asking a question to a rape victim is an insensitive thing to do. Like, how do you physically prove to someone you were raped a year prior? I would assume it's impossible, but we'll see. I'm under the impression that she's sworn to confidentiality and can't take part in the case either. So she's not going to be able to testify on her own behalf unless they make a special exception in this particular case because it's reopened. But we'll see. I'm not sure. So I do think it's interesting how this whole thing came about, though. Looking at Bill Cosby's professional career, let me just say this right now. If I saw Bill with a pudding pop in his mouth, I'd slap that shit on the floor and sea walk on it. This dude was a huge antagonist to hip hop and young black males in hip hop culture. He never learned how to gain understanding of who the younger generation was. He chose to sit on a pedestal and condemn us. And that was one thing that really pissed me off about Bill Cosby when I was coming up through college, was just hearing dude and his almost holier than thou type of approach to, when it came to talking about, black males in hip hop culture. And I just never liked that shit, man. I just never, I always thought Bill Cosby was funny and I thought he was a stand-up dude, but I always was under the impression that he would have been like an older uncle, somebody that you could talk to, somebody that understands, and somebody that's empathetic, and it's somebody that, that's not judgmental. But I was proven wrong, man, and I was just like, man, fuck Bill Cosby, dude. So when this whole story broke, for a minute, everybody, even me, said the exact same thing. Karma's a bitch. As I dig deeper into the story and look at how most of these so-called 50 women who brought up allegations against him weren't actually raped, it makes me question what the motives are behind, coming forward at all and saying things. And is this a smear campaign against this man's legacy? Why is the Cosby Show off the air? Seventh Heaven is still on the air, and this dude was convicted, of being a child molester. You know what I'm saying? I just don't understand, why is all of this stuff happening to Bill Cosby? Why is all of these things being stripped of him over allegations? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Then I look at Bill's legitimate attempt to purchase NBC back when it was still owned by General Electric, GE. He was preparing to purchase a controlling stock in the company, and that was ultimately shut down. And I like to believe this is a grand conspiracy to ruin the legacy of the symbol for black fatherhood in America. But, never have I seen such punishment and ridicule over allegations. These are allegations. This is not facts. The man has seemingly already been proven guilty by the public. Every news outlet is publishing article after article of he say, she say, right? And you begin to feel like they all have skin in this game. And it's someone behind the curtains orchestrating this entire thing. Yeah, the advertising companies are paying a fortune to publishing companies because they have a lot of the attention of the people, and the people are paying lots of attention to the Cosby story. So the more we keep up with the story and keep the fire burning, the more money they make from it. We'll see it now. We see it now and have seen it for the last few years on Facebook. It seems like the most popular story to tell is the one of police brutality involving a white police officer and a black victim. There are lots of officer-involved shootings that take place throughout the year, yet the national news always presents the black versus white dynamic. Why is that? And I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that, Donald Trump, not necessarily Donald Trump is responsible for it, but Donald Trump is conjuring up a lot of this racist rhetoric, this conservative, Confederate, old white racist, rhetoric and culture that still exists in this country. And so when black people see this and white people see it, you'll be surprised at the dynamics of the conversation. Like, people really stand behind these cops 100%. They don't care if the kid was innocent or not, had his hands up or not. And so I think it's got a lot to do with Facebook's philosophy of relevance. The stories that are most popular and generate the most engagement find themselves at the top of the news feed all the time. But not only that, the stories that you find yourselves connecting with the most, Facebook will almost curate a timeline that provides more content like that to your timeline in hopes that you stay on Facebook longer. So, Facebook is playing a huge role in keeping this race debate, and even this, just more specifically, this Cosby story recycling in the consciousness of the people. So this is why more and more news articles are publishing and digging, and it doesn't matter if what she's saying is factual. It's just about getting the content related to Bill Cosby, because Bill Cosby is the keyword that people are searching for. And so if you analyze the data and you know that the keyword that people are focusing on is Bill Cosby, we're going to give you all the content related to Cosby. But whenever you're creating content with intention, right? And so, the intention of people is to slander Bill Cosby, because we could easily see what people's intentions are if they were praising Bill Cosby. We could see, you could tell if they thought he was guilty or innocent by the type of content that they associate and connect with him. If they were putting out favorite Cosby moments, or favorite different world moments, you could tell there would be support for Bill Cosby, because we want you to remember Bill Cosby in this light, or what's the funniest part of Bill Cosby's stand-up routine. You know what I'm saying? But it's not like that. It's like everything is, inflated claims from women who may or may not have been sexually assaulted by Bill Cosby, and it just makes you wonder, what is the motivation behind it, other than trying to destroy, probably the most upstanding black man in America's legacy. Ultimately, did Bill Cosby rape those women? That's the ultimate question. What do you think, Buns? Did Bill Cosby rape these women? I don't know. I think there's a difference in drugging someone and you and someone taking pills together with the intention of having sex. I think what Rick Ross said,
put Molly all in her champagne, she ain't even know it. I took her home and I enjoyed that, she ain't even know it.
I think that's wrong. She's not consenting to that. She doesn't know that you're putting Molly in her fucking champagne, nigga. And you took her home and enjoyed that. She ain't even know it. That's rape, nigga. But that's not what Bill Cosby is saying according to his depositions. He's saying, yeah, we took lewds, but this is the drug of choice. This was the Molly of the 70s. We took the lewds, and I was beating that thing down. We were having consensual sex. That's the whole point of us taking the lewds. This wasn't me raping her or drugging her. We were popping pills together and having sex. So, like I said, I don't know. That's what needs to be proved in court. It's hard for me to believe that Bill would even have to rape women, given his power, his intellect, and his fortune at the time. Every woman wants a man like Cosby, and some are more inclined to prove just how bad that is, even if that means having sex with him knowing that he's a married man. His wife was 19 when she married him, so clearly she knew he was having sex with other women. She probably didn't mind. Otherwise, she would have left if she minded. And that's another thing. It's like people are trying to throw in Camille into this situation now as if he was cheating on his wife. What if they had an open relationship and she didn't mind his sexual promiscuity? It's a lot of women out there like that are saying now men are not designed to be with one woman. And I personally don't have no problem with it. It's not my thing. You know what I'm saying? It ain't no skin off my back if niggas is out here fucking with all kind of different women and they're married. If their women are cool with it and that's the type of relationship that they have and they're not violent and they're not nasty to each other, I think you should have whatever relationship dynamic that works for you. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not the judge of that, But like I said, I don't think, it's hard for me to imagine that Bill Cosby would have to work so hard to get some. But at the same time, You know, some men have sick fetishes. So I can't excuse the possibility either that the man could be a deranged, sick, psychopathic bastard either. You know, none of us have all the facts of the case. So until they come out, I don't know. And I think the man should be treated like an innocent man until the court proves him guilty. You know, however, you know, some new news just came out yesterday. A report came out stating that there is significant chance that the charges will be thrown out. You know, given the fact that the former district attorney of Montgomery County made a promise not to prosecute Cosby in respect to the allegation of sexual assault. According to the report, if Bill Cosby relied on a non-prosecution promise, then I don't see how this case can go forward. That's the report that's on the press right now. And, you know, I think that there's some weight to that, man. So, like I said, man, let's just let the courts decide what's going to happen. And, you know, young ladies, man, you know, I pray, please don't wait. You know, if anything happens, I hope this is not going to be taken as insensitive. Just don't wait, man. If something happens to you, report that shit right away. You know, because it is some sick bastards out here that do enjoy raping women. And them motherfuckers need to burn at the stake. And if Bill Cosby raped those women, then fuck Bill Cosby even more. Burn that nigga at the stake, chop his balls off, chop his neck off. Fuck that nigga, man. We could throw his ass in the trash. Excuse my French, but that's just how I feel, man. You know, ain't no reason to rape no woman, man. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you got money and you powerful, dude. You can go buy you some. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, like I said, there are some sick and deranged people out there. But until we find out, you know, in court, if this man is guilty or not, I think he should be treated, you know, as all, you know, people who are, you know, alleged criminals. They should be innocent till proven guilty. You know, allow this man to be proven guilty before we prosecute him and burn him at the stake. Moving on. I don't know. Maybe I'm a racist, but why is it when white folks do certain things like point guns at cops and siege federal buildings with assault rifles with the intent of going out in a fiery blaze, or knowingly have sex with multiple women while having HIV, the world just writes it off as, oh, crazy white folks? But if this Oregon militia was a group of Muslims, I can imagine how we'd already be cleaning up the human remains after the government dropped a bomb on them. In an article posted on Al Jazeera by journalist and assistant professor of law at the Barry University Duane O. Andreas School of Law, Khalid Beydoun, said, Muslims are suspected of terrorism by merely being Muslims, while white militants, like the militiamen in Oregon, are seldom identified as terrorists when carrying forward a terrorist conspiracy, but also seldom prosecuted as terrorists when driven to execute school children, churchgoers, or minorities to carry forward a hateful ideology. But like I said, maybe I'm the bigot though. So for those who haven't been following the story from the beginning, the Mahler National Wildlife Refuge military occupation is over the arrest and conviction of two Oregon ranchers, Dwight and Steve Hammond, of arson committed on federal land. The two men both surrendered to the authorities and will serve their time. Dwight and his son, Steve, were charged with the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act for a couple of fires they set on their own property, but which reached federal land. The first incident was in 2001 and was put out by the Hammonds, but the second one was in 2006, which happened to be put out by federal firefighters. The judge that sentenced them ignored the mandatory minimum provisions of the law and sentenced Dwight to 3 months in jail, and Steve received 1 year and a day. That was nice. However, they were forced back into jail after serving those sentences when federal prosecutors successfully appealed for the mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years for each man. The militia activists are also unhappy with the way the government manages the land in the area, saying that it leaves little for local ranchers. So on the surface, it's like, okay, what's the problem, right? Well, when word got out of the sentence, Cliven Bundy and his son Amon Bundy took it upon themselves to stage a protest in their defense. They made this video clip saying,
this will become a base place for patriots from all over the country to come and to be housed here and live here. And we're planning on staying here for several years.
And since then, they've recruited about over 150 other domestic terrorists to come join in on the cause. Son, listen to me right now. Hear the sound of my voice. Once again, this is a serious moment. We want want you to understand. This is a federal building. The complex includes offices, bunk beds, workshops, and other resources, including federal documents. Federal documents, which the occupying group leaders, Amon Bundy, admitted to going through. Now, I mean, come on, man. What's going on? You know, why am I calling these dudes terrorists, right? I'll get back to that in a moment. First, let's talk about these Bundys. Who are these Bundy guys? No, we're not talking about Al Bundy. We're talking about Amon and Cliven Bundy. So the Bundys are no strangers to military occupations in opposition to the federal government. From about 1989 to about today, the Bundy family has been in direct violation of federal law, according to the government. The Bureau of Land Management declared the Nevada County tortoise an endangered species and prohibited livestock grazing there as a result. In response to this, Bundy brought his gang and warded off the federal government, who retreated in fear of a bloody massacre. How considerate of him. Bundy told reporters this:
"It's no different than a Mexican cartel telling you have to pay money to stay on your own property."
Bundy supporter Paul Lindsay said at the time,
"It's the same thing."
My question is, who's the Mexican gang in this situation? Well, according to Bundy, he believes he has preemptive grazing rights on public domain land because some of his maternal grandmother's ancestors had kept cattle in the Virgin Valley beginning in 1877. However, according to the courts, there are no legally recognized inherited grazing rights, preemptive rights, special rights, or grandfathered public domain land use rights held by the Bundy family or Bundy's ancestors. In fact, Bundy lost his special rights arguments in the U.S. versus Bundy case, and I'll publish that on TommyBuns.com under this podcast episode, so you can check it out there for yourself if you want to investigate further. Bundy had only base property and normal assets under management grazing allotment permits, like the permits of thousands of other ranchers throughout the western United States. So what makes this person, Mr. Bundy, feel so entitled? Speaking of entitlements, something conservatives for years have claimed hurts the American economy, especially when it comes to blacks and welfare. In an interview with the New York Times, Cliven Bundy said this in regards to black folks after driving past a housing project in North Las Vegas.
"They abort their young children. They put their young men in jail because they never learned how to pick cotton." Yeah, I said it. They never learned how to pick cotton. And I've often wondered, are they better off as slaves, picking cotton and having a family life and doing things? Or are they better off under government subsidy? They didn't get no more freedom. They got less freedom.
Still think I'm the racist here? Cliven Bundy reminds me of those wealthy, spoiled white kids that call their parents by their first name and cuss their ass out when they don't get their way. When asked to relocate his cattle, Bundy told the federal government,
"I not only said no, I said hell no."
The fact still remains that this man has no legal inheritance rights to this land that he believes is his birthright. Switching back to Oregon, if we really want to discuss birthrights and ancestral inheritance, how about we give the land back to the Burns Paiute tribe, a group of Native Americans who died and fought European settlers over their land long before the federal government came into existence. How about that? That would be justice, wouldn't it? CNN interviewed a member of the Burns Paiute tribe who said this:
"Go home. We didn't ask you to be here. Harney County residents here know our rights, and we can stand up for ourselves. To me, they're just a bunch of bullies and little criminals coming in here and trying to push us around over here and occupy our Aboriginal territories out there where our ancestors are buried."
You got pretty emotional when talking about this. What brings out the emotion in you?
Being mad, getting tired of people trying to think this is their land. And like I told you in there, we're here way before anybody else got here, of the Eastern Oregon, Idaho, Northern California, and Northern Nevada there. And it gets tiring. It's the same battles that my ancestor had, and now it's just a bunch of different cavalry wearing a bunch of different coats. the way I see it.
What do you think would happen if it was your tribe that had decided to take over that federal land?
Oh, we'd be already shot up, blown up in jail, handcuffed.
At the last town hall meeting, local tribesmen as well as locals of the community voiced their opposition to the military occupation. Charlotte Rodrigue, the Burns Paiute tribe chairwoman, told reporters Wednesday, "Armed protesters don't belong here. By their actions, they are desecrating one of our sacred traditional cultural properties. They are endangering our children and the safety of our community, and they need to leave." In numerous reports about this story around the country, there's been an unsurprising consistency in the language used to define these dudes. They've been unanimous in labeling Bundy and the gang a militia, the white male equivalent to black thugs or brown terrorists. However, OregonLive.com conducted a poll, and surprisingly, more people actually categorize these dudes as terrorists, which makes me wonder. One, why is the media trying so hard to tell us that these men aren't domestic terrorists? Two, why are reporters going out of their way to meticulously begin defining what a terrorist is or isn't? A Time magazine writer wrote a response to a Washington Post article asking why aren't these men being labeled terrorists. In the article, Why We Don't Call the Oregon Militia Members Terrorists, the author attempts to cloak white male favoritism and racial bias behind the idea of deeply rooted linguistic xenophobia in American culture, which is the academic alternative to saying racist. He goes on to say things like, men in America who oppress and harass women are sexist, but in the Middle East they are considered traditional. Black people's love-hate relationship with the word thug has placed the burden of the word on our backs, which is another soft way of saying when the media calls you thugs, you did it to yourself. Furthermore, on terrorism, he defines terrorists as people who are most readily thought of as someone who comes from beyond our comfort zone. We can consciously state that Dylan Roof, too, is a terrorist, but subconsciously, the word in most of us summons events like recent ones in Paris and San Bernardino. We consciously know there can be a white thug, but subconsciously, in terms of street crime, thug more readily calls up a black face, just as animated cartoon more readily calls up a talking animal than an office bureaucrat. I just love how he tries to paste his linguistic xenophobic theory onto each culture to deflect the fact that we are witnessing a complete and utter revelation of white male favoritism and privilege in how the media is covering terrorist negotiations. So, are these men terrorists? Professor Badun also says, in the U.S., terrorism is more identity than it is activity. Whiteness not only arms the militiamen in Oregon with the presumption of innocence that systematically negates threat, but also emboldens their extremism by the lack of serious police opposition. And I'll add that whiteness also arms the militiamen with the idea that America and its land is truly theirs. Let's keep it 100 in 2016, all right? This has gone on long enough. I know it's been over 530 years since the first European settlers set foot on the shores of the East Coast to claim the New World as theirs, but son, this land was never yours and will never be yours. I'm not rocking with the militia on this one. Moving on. So, I want to talk about the Oscars real quick. The 2016 Oscar nominations are in, and once again, man, black people. Why? I don't know, man, what's going on with my people. So the hashtag is going around, it's Oscar so white, and people are taking to Twitter talking about black people can't even get nominated for the movies about black people. A young lady did a nice little short comedic video about, I think her name is Cheska Lee, and she did a hilarious Oscar so white fake nail tutorial, and she used every shade of like beige and white. It was so funny. But she wanted to talk about, she was talking about how the Oscars are so white this year. But I don't know, man. I got a different take on it, man. I've seen all the movies that feature black folks, except for Beast of No Nation, and I turned my back on Beast of No Nation, not for really any reason. I never really felt like I really wanted to watch it. It just wasn't something that really interested me. I'm not interested in seeing movies about child soldiers in West Africa. I'm not, I'd rather read about it than watch it be portrayed over and over again. To me, seeing child soldiers and the type of militias and extremist terrorist organizations in Africa is just as bad as seeing the black folks in chains as slaves and shit here in America. So those type of movies I'm not really into. But I did see Creed. I talked about Creed a couple weeks back. I did see Straight Outta Compton. I saw that. I did see Concussion. And I mean, honestly, out of Creed, Straight Outta Compton, and Concussion, none of them to me stood out in any particular category. I mean, Straight Outta Compton, you could probably give it, best soundtrack or best music or best original song. You know what I'm saying? And that's because of the fact that, the music from that time period was polarizing. I mean, this is NWA. This is some of the best music, to come out of the, West Coast hip hop. Matter of fact, some of the best, arguably some of the best music to come out of hip hop. You know what I mean? Fuck the Police. That was huge. That was a huge record. So I could see if they wanted to give it like an honorary nod for, a music or like original song or something like that. But other than that, like, I mean, the screenplay was okay, but it did get a nomination for the screenplay. And people are arguing against that because, the writers of the film weren't even black. They were white screenwriters, all of them. Every writer on this particular film is a white writer. And that was one person's critique, too. It was just like, Straight Outta Compton and Creed both got one nomination each, but for the white people involved. So for, like I said, the screenwriters for Straight Outta Compton, and then Sylvester Stallone ends up picking up an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for Creed. I really don't think Creed was a Best Picture candidate. I don't think Michael B. Jordan was a Best Actor candidate either. But I do think that, maybe your boy Ryan Coogler could have been considered for Best Director, because I think he pulled Sylvester Stallone back a lot. Sylvester Stallone was very, very one-dimensional, and I'm surprised that he even got the nomination for this one. And maybe because it's the Academy hasn't seen Sylvester Stallone in a role like this. He's usually the big tough Rambo. He's the action star, so he's always fighting somebody, beating somebody up, something's blowing up. So to see him in a domestic capacity, it probably, made them feel as though, wow, that, he does have dimension to him. Maybe he is, better than we thought. I don't know. I'm not sure what, the motivations were behind them choosing him, but I wouldn't have picked him to be a Best Supporting Actor for this. I thought he was muted. He was monotone. He did have like this older uncle feel. But, I mean, he really didn't move me as much as Michael B. Jordan's character did. But then even his character didn't really move me. I wasn't really, like, super, super, super impressed by his performance. I thought he did a good job. But it's like, come on, man. We're talking about Best Actor. You're talking about, Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about Michael Fassbender as Steve Jobs, probably one of the most cerebral, daunting personalities that you'll find. We're talking about Bryan Cranston and Trumbo as Dalton Trumbo. These were all men who were these are like type A personalities. Like, Michael B. Jordan's character was a very like kind of quiet, humble dude who just enjoyed fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was kind of like flat as well. Like, he was just real calm and cool, and he didn't really like give you a whole wide range of a lot of shit, as opposed to Leonardo DiCaprio. He gave you some of the most intense performance that you'll ever see in your life, especially from him. All of these characters were like pushed to like different limits in these films, and I just don't feel like I really saw that with Michael B. Jordan. I did like Will Smith in Concussion. I could probably take, if you ask me, I don't know, maybe you could take out Matt Damon for The Martian, and I would put in maybe Will Smith in that particular role. But or you could even take him out and Yeah, man. But see, if you take him out, if you take Matt Damon out, there's no way you can overlook the young boy from Room. This kid was 9 years old, but yet and still he was so on point in that movie, where it exists in only one room. His name is Jacob Tremblay, and he's 9 years old. If he would have been nominated for Best Actor, he would have tied Jackie Cooper from 1931 in the film Skippy as being the youngest actor to ever appear in that particular category. So, I mean, I don't think there's no way of taking anybody else out. And even if you do take any of these actors out, there's someone else who I think, there's somebody else before we get to Michael B. Jordan and before we get to Will Smith that will fill those roles, man, and let's be real. Like, let's look at the director category. Even if we want to add Ryan Coogler to the ballot, Lenny Abramson for Room. Room is an incredibly claustrophobic film. It takes place in a room, literally, and so you have to think about how you're going to direct your actor to find motivation before they flatline, and so to be able to navigate that process and help them through and coach them through and direct them through, the process of trying to find business in a room that they can create these imaginary realities. I think that that's an incredibly daunting task, and I think that he should be commended for the success of the film. You move on to Alejandro G. Iñárritu, who I think is going to win the Best Director category because of the fact that, I mean, it was so brutal. This film, being actually out in the elements, shooting on natural light, and just really being a strong, true visionary behind the film. I really don't see nobody else really fucking with son when it comes to this year's Oscar nominations. I mean, I was wrong about Richard Linklater and Boyhood because, I mean, like I said, and I'll still say it right now, like, 12 years you're directing characters and keeping them in character at the same time for 12 years without losing sight of that particular of who these characters are and where these characters are going in this particular story. I thought that was fantastic. I think it probably was one of the best directorial feats that of in the last 20-30 years, or probably that I've ever seen. Adam McKay for The Big Short. I mean, this dude is normally known for comedy, and here it is. He took on such a tough subject matter as the 2008 financial crisis, the housing market crisis, I should say, and he found a way to make it palatable. He found a way to take, and then he was dealing with a lot of big name actors. He was dealing with, Christian Bale. He was dealing with Brad Pitt, and he was also dealing with, Steve Carell, who are all strange personalities. You know what I'm saying? But yet and still, they all found a way to kind of like weave this weird, intricate, complex narrative together. I think is definitely worth being commended. Tom McCarthy, maybe you could take Tom McCarthy out and put Ryan Coogler there for Spotlight, but Spotlight was spot on, man. I watched Spotlight and was really, really impressed with it. It really reminded me of some Aaron Sorkin shit. It reminded me of some real strong, deep, investigative journalist type deal. Like, and for a minute, like you lose the sense that you're watching actors, portray these characters, and you get lost in this story, and you start to like just, you put your guards down and you just allow the story to take you, and it feels real. It feels like you're experiencing it for the first time, especially if you aren't familiar with the history of, how the Boston Globe broke the story on the Catholic Church and how these priests were, molesting these young men. So I think that Tom McCarthy did an excellent job. And, I still haven't even seen Mad Max, but, I mean, the reviews that I've been hearing about Mad Max all year have been consistent, that it's hands down one of the best films of the year. And, I mean, so it makes sense to me why it's also nominated for Best Picture. And, see, that's the thing. To me, just being a filmmaker, you can't nominate a film for Best Picture and then not acknowledge it for any of the other categories, because there's no way that this is the best picture of the year. The best picture means it's the best overall product. So there's no way to me that you can have the best picture, but also you don't have the best actor, the best cinematography, the best screenplay, the best music, the best editing, the best visual effects, the best sound design, the best costumes, the best hair and makeup. There's no way for you to not have best picture and then not have a combination of those particular subsidiary categories. You see what I'm saying? Because all these components combined make it the best picture. You see what I'm saying? And so a lot of times I think the Oscars is political as well because of the fact that people have to watch the show. So you have to nominate, big name talent for these particular slots as well, because people have to want to watch because they want to see their favorite actors win, or they want to see their favorite actors on screen as the awards are being announced and things of that nature. So sometimes you'll see films that show up in the best picture category, but that aren't acknowledged for anything else, and most of that is just because of the fact that they're trying to drive viewership. So 2016 Oscar nominations, everybody's up in arms about there not being a large enough representation of black folks. And my biggest thing is I don't think everybody in the black community is watching all of these movies, and it makes me mad because black folks sometimes we can kind of be short-sighted when it comes to the issue of race. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we shoot our own selves in the foot when it comes to this shit, because just because a black face is in a movie that's a little bit serious and they did an okay job on it, it doesn't mean that they should be nominated for a fucking Oscar, man. It doesn't mean that it's the best movie. We're talking about some of the best movies in the world in America, or the best movies in America that are competing. And I don't think Creed was one of the best movies in America this year. I would put The Hateful Eight in the best picture category before I put Creed, before I put Straight Outta Compton, before I put Concussion, before I put Beast of No Nation. I would put it there. Why? Because of the shit was dope. Like, it really, really was dope, right? But, they even expanded the best picture categories this year, and they have like 8 films that are nominated for Best Picture. Usually it's like 5. Most importantly, other than the fact that, I think we need to get over ourselves, and I think we should actually watch a lot of these movies that are nominated for Best Picture before we start saying that, the Oscars should be a lot more diverse. I think that we should be a lot more diverse with the type of movies that we support. We have a lot of film directors out there right now, like Terrence Nance, that nobody's talking about. I would encourage all of you guys to go watch an oversimplification of Her Beauty. That's his first feature film. Questlove is behind it. Flying Lotus is behind it. Jay-Z is behind it. This is who I would put my money on. But like I said, we are bougie. We have bougie taste. So we want to be recognized at the highest white representation of the motion picture industry, but at the same time, we won't watch the NAACP awards when we're giving best director to F. Gary Gray or some black actor that didn't make it in the Oscars. We only want the Oscars to recognize our talent. But when BET or when the NAACP awards gives black folks these prestigious awards and lifetime achievement awards, they don't get the same numbers, they don't get the same looks. Why the fuck are we always supporting the Oscars? Even if the voting body is predominantly white, why are we continuing to watch? Why are we continuing to watch and being mad that the Oscars isn't a representation of us? I do think that Hollywood should be a lot more diverse, but I don't think that diversity should be I don't think that they should just sprinkle black people into these categories when black people aren't deserving of it. You see what I'm saying? Just for diversity's sake, or just because of the fact that we want to make sure that black folks are watching the Oscars. I'm not with that, man. Like, I want to see the best films that are representative of our community. And I don't feel like Straight Outta Compton was the best film that represented for us, or I don't even feel like it was the best film at all. You know what I'm saying? It was a biopic about a group of motherfuckers who, I mean, if you ask me, there ain't nothing really significant about NWA. Now, if this was a Public Enemy biopic and they had F. Gary Gray directed and it was, you know, shot the same way and the money was put behind it the way it was put behind Straight Outta Compton, now I'm sure we would have something a lot more polarizing. Why? Because Chuck D, peace to the OG, he had a lot more to say about what was going on in, you know, in that particular time period from a socio-political and economic standpoint. And he was talking about things that are universal and still things that we're dealing with today that you kind of lost out on in NWA. I do respect NWA as being part of hip hop history, but I don't put NWA up there on no fucking pedestal to where I feel like, you know, we need to watch an NWA film because it's that important. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? But I understand you have Ice Cube, you have Dr. Dre. You know, these are powerful black men, black filmmakers, black producers now, you know, who can put money and get people to do the things that they want. So, of course, it was a lot of shit that they left out. Dr. Dre was out there putting hands on women. You know what I'm saying? They didn't even acknowledge that at all. So they kind of like retold the history of NWA and made it to where these dudes were something other than what they really were. And I don't really respect that. As a filmmaker, I feel like, you know, our films could be a lot more polarizing. I feel like there's still, you know, I still feel like there's themes that we're not exploring that could be a lot more polarizing to our community and just to the film world in general. You know, I think white folks is waiting for black folks to really, really keep that shit real and stop trying to appeal to them, you know, and stop trying to make them like the films that we make. I think, you know, white folks is just like, man, let me hear it. Let me see your truth. You know, but who's going to actually come up with some real cutting edge, different, next level shit? I'm talking about not doing biopics on shit that we're familiar with. Fuck that. Like, you know, when are we going to get into the future? When are we going to, you know, what is our take on the singularity effect? What is our take on artificial intelligence? What is our take on, you know, animation? What is our take on horror? What is our take on sci-fi? You know what I'm saying? What is our take on period pieces? So I'm not fucking with this Oscar so white shit. It is white. It's going to continue to be white until we step our bars up and start supporting more black film directors, put more money behind black film, and supporting the ideas that are going to push the envelope, make us uncomfortable, make us think about things in a different light. You know what I'm saying? So miss me, like I said, miss me with your fake support, with your fake care, with your fake protests. Miss me with that fake shit, man. Y'all niggas don't really give a fuck about no black people being in no Oscars. Because if you did, you wouldn't be talking about the mainstream black folks, that the 0.2% of black folks that do get an opportunity. You'll be talking about this underground of black cinema that's been popping up with Black and Sexy TV, all of the shit that they got going on, all the shit that Issa Rae got going on. You know what I'm saying? You'll be talking about that. You know, but we not. You know, we're not supporting it. We're not watching it enough. We're not talking about them enough. We're not bigging them up enough. You know what I mean? So shout out to all my folks that's out here that's really doing it, that's really putting feet to the pavement. You know, the Issa Raes, the Numa Perriers, you know, the folks over at Black and Sexy TV. You know what I'm saying? The Terrence Nances. I see y'all, man. You know, the John Geniuses, the Tommy Bunses, the KD Sellers, the Millard Waltons, the Geno Brookses out there, you know what I'm saying, with Black Boots. You know what I'm saying? Friday the web series, you know what I mean? Like Choices, Best Enemy. Let's get it, man. Peace to all my niggas that's out here that's really doing it, really putting it in. My man Todd McGuire, T.O. Dub. Let's go, man. It's time to work. And we hope that y'all support what we doing out here as filmmakers and producers and creators and creatives. We gonna make it get to the point where you ain't gonna have no choice. You know, you gonna have to make a decision. Like, you gonna really have to show up and show out. So I've been talking about this shit for damn near an hour, and it's time to move on. So my city, Inglewood, city of champions. Inglewood is on the verge of becoming a world-class entertainment city and hub of the NFL and many other sporting events, after a 30-2 ratification was made to allow the Rams to immediately move to Los Angeles, man. This is crazy, dude. This has been one of the most exhilarating weeks I've had in a very, very, very long time, dude. And I'm not even really I'm not really even behind the scenes in the process like that. I'm really just telling the story. I'm just really around capturing all the moments, that are happening. But, it's interesting to be a part of this, this story that's unfolding here in Inglewood that, many of us seen coming back in 2006 when, Hollywood Park was, going through another round of trying to convince us about what the Hollywood Park Tomorrow project was going to look like. And so, I had the foresight to see, like, this city was bubbling, things were happening, and I wanted to, anchor myself here. And so, over the course of a few years, man, I was doing a lot of work for the city for free. I was doing a lot of work for them for free and, just paying my dues and just trying to do dope work for them to help them see kind of like how it was important to tell this story, even though I didn't know where this story was going. And so now to be on this part of, or this side of the story where, I know a lot of the people who are the decision makers, I know them and I work with them, very closely. And just to see, how fast it all turned around, to see how fast all this is happening now is just mind blowing. You go from one day being able to pick up the phone and call somebody to the next day, everybody's busy because the whole world is calling, inquiring. Now folks are coming wanting to set up businesses and everybody who just wants to be in on what's going on in this city now. And I think that I think it's incredible. But I also, I have my reservations and I'm nervous about it a little bit too, because I don't want Inglewood's identity to be compromised. So in a 29-page document presented this week, St. Louis Rams owner Stan Kroenke made the case for why it's important to the NFL to allow the team to relocate to Los Angeles, specifically the Inglewood Stadium site. So he proposed that the move would in fact benefit the league and as well as Inglewood because of the fact that Inglewood had the superior development plan. And that's what I'm saying. It feels good to be part of the history of my community. I wrote a piece this week about the Rams returning. You can check that out at TommyBuns.com. Go to www.TommyBuns.com and you'll be able to see my article on the LA Rams. I was going to call them the Inglewood Rams, but the LA Rams return that made front page of the Inglewood Today newspaper. This stadium is going to be one of the most lavish stadiums in the world, man. It's designed by a firm called HKS. And this is the same design team that designed the Vikings' new stadium, the Dallas Cowboys stadium. They have some really, really beautiful designs for the stadium that's going to render it a multi-purpose facility and a walkable art exhibit. The venue would be capable of hosting two teams, and those two teams, the first option is the San Diego Chargers. Dean Spanos, he kind of got caught with his tail between his legs because he got bad advice from the LA committee. The NFL commission, they gave him some bad advice, gassing him up, telling him that Carson project was going to happen. But that Carson project was not going to happen, man. Ain't no way in hell that, you're going to build a football stadium on top of a methane gas deposit, so they would have to build pumping systems to pump out the methane gas. They would have to dig out all the dirt, destroy the dirt, and then put new fresh dirt on top of it and then pump that gas out of there. It's just way too much, man. It was just a bad idea. Dean Spanos of the Chargers bought into it, and he thought that he had something going. He thought that he was actually going to get the support that he needed. And surprisingly, the first vote, there was 2 rounds of votings that happened. The first vote went 20-12 with Inglewood winning. And that's when he realized that he didn't have it the way he thought. The second round of voting was just really like, the bullet to the dome, because that went 30-2. And so he now has to figure out what he's going to do. And they've given him a year to make a decision, because the thing is, he doesn't really like Stan Kroenke. And I figured that. I was talking, to some folks, and I just was like, I was just like, it doesn't seem like he really likes this dude, because he didn't say like, all right, cool, well, we're going to make a deal. It's not, he was really banking on being in Carson. But if you really wanted to be in LA and you really want to relocate your team, why wouldn't you want to play why wouldn't you be eager to play at the most lavish stadium in the world? So to me, I've realized that, you could tell that it was something different there. So now, he's trying to figure out what he's going to do. This might have been a leverage play. Like maybe he didn't really want to leave at all. He's just playing San Diego. So there's a bunch of theories out there about, his whole ordeal. But, the stadium is going to be able to house two teams. Mark Davis seemed very, very, he didn't seem very bothered by the decision. He shouted out Mayor Butts. Inglewood was saying that he's a good friend. I think that, the Raiders might even come, low key. That would be crazy to bring both teams back in the same year that, or just to bring both teams back that originally left, even if they don't come in the same year, just to bring those same two teams back. So yeah, they'll be able to house two NFL teams, 70,240 fixed seats, and accommodate another 30,000 people in standing room only areas for larger events. There'll be about 274 suites, 16,300 premium seats, and about 12,675 dedicated surface parking spaces. Aside from dominating the prospective list of relocation options, the Inglewood Stadium also provides a wealth of amenities, including an establishment of NFL hub for West Coast operations, which would be nearly 3 million square feet, hosting the Combine, the Pro Bowl, NFL Network, NFL Media, NFL Films premieres, and NFL Digital. So, yeah, I'm going to have season tickets to the Rams games, even though I'm a Saints fan. But, damn, fall back, son. I ain't got no tickets for you. In addition to the Inglewood Stadium, the sleeper that nobody's talking about is the Las Vegas Arena on the Strip. And this is the T-Mobile Arena, man. This is crazy. So T-Mobile bought the naming rights to a $37 million arena being built by MGM and AEG, the same folks that was trying to can the Inglewood Stadium project. So T-Mobile, reached a 50-50 partner deal. The arena is going to have about 20,000 seats. This is T-Mobile's first arena deal with the venue owner. This is T-Mobile's first corporate arena deal with the venue owner. They plan to activate their naming rights deal with the special VIP and ticket deals for customers. Thank you very much. T-Mobile also reported that they're the fastest growing wireless company in the world with about 61.2 million customers. I see you, T-Mobile. Get these dudes a run for their money, man. Let's diversify these marketplaces, man. Let's get more people involved. Let's get more people out here to compete for this money, man. It's way too much money that's in very, very, very few people's hands, man. Spread some of that wealth around. Jumping back to the Inglewood Stadium, though, and just into stadiums in general, my biggest concern for the project is the socioeconomic impact a project like this is going to have on the city of Inglewood. John Oliver also had some great points about the misconception about stadiums and the so-called revenues they bring into a community. Here's some clips.
The vast majority of stadiums are built using public money. One analysis found that between 2000 and 2010, we spent $12 billion building new facilities for professional teams, which begs the question, why? Sports teams are successful businesses with wealthy owners, and yet they still get our help. 2 years ago, Detroit got approval to spend more than $280 million in taxpayer money on a new arena project for the Red Wings, just 6 days after the city filed for bankruptcy. We don't just help teams build stadiums. We let them keep virtually all the revenue those stadiums then produce. Just listen to the president of the Miami Marlins describe their not at all unusual deal.
You get the income from the naming rights?
Yes.
You get the income from concessions?
Yes.
You get the luxury box income?
Yes.
You get the income from non-baseball events?
That's the whole object of this, is to get more revenue.
Stadiums very rarely revitalise their surrounding areas or create large numbers of permanent jobs. Just listen to one bar owner near that new Marlins ballpark.
He says since the stadium opened in 2012, not only have his profits not risen, on game days his regulars stay away, afraid of the traffic.
Here as a business owner, we don't see any changes. You could even say it's hurting us.
Of course it is, because no one has ever said, hey, let's go hang out in the area around the stadium. And I'll tell you why, I've got a new shirt and I really want someone to vomit Miller Lite and nachos all over it. In fact, a major review of almost 20 years of studies showed economists could find no substantial evidence that stadiums had increased jobs, incomes, or tax revenues. Or to put that another way...
This one economist said to me, I love this line, he said, rather than spend $1 billion on a stadium, you're actually better off flying a plane over a city and dumping $1 billion on the populace and just letting them pick up the money and spend it.
You know, first and foremost, Inglewood is a predominantly black and brown community, practically split down the middle, 46% Latino, 46% black. The median income is below the national average. Statistics show that 80% of residents qualify for some level of low-income assistance. 63% of the residents in Inglewood rent. And with the $1 billion project coming into the community that raises the profile of the city, you can expect sales tax hikes, rent hikes, and overall cost of living increases. So what alarms me is the fact that there isn't a rent control ordinance in place now. You know, I've been talking about this since 2006, since I saw since Hollywood Park Tomorrow was sending around those flyers with the pictures of what it was going to look like. There are no real safeguards in place. However, if you go to www.hollywoodparklife.com, you'll see that there are community benefits that the city is going to inherit once this project is done, beginning with the fact that no tax dollars or public funding will be used for the construction of the City of Champions revitalization project. And that's something that's rare when it comes to stadium developments. Every city, if you go and research, you'll find that most cities that have sports complexes and sports arenas, the public has to pay some type of percentage to finance this project, because most owners of NFL teams aren't billionaires, aren't rich. They're billionaires, but they aren't as rich as a Stan Kroenke. And matter of fact, not all of them are even billionaires, because from my understanding, Mark Davis they say his net worth is only about $500 million. Still rather rich, I might say. But, not everybody's a billionaire like Stan Kroenke, and not everybody's wife is a billionaire either, like, the young lady from the Walton family who owns Walmart. And that just happened to be who he bought that 60-acre parcel of land from to get this process rolling. But, back to the community benefits of this project, it's expected to create long-term revenue for the city, of course. The project is also expected to create thousands of new construction jobs as well as permanent jobs in Inglewood. There's a hiring preference of Inglewood residents. They're going to go with Inglewood residents first, obviously. And there's a hiring goal of 35% local hire. So I think that those are good. The new project will also provide job training programs and local job fairs to prepare Inglewood residents for the new employment opportunities as they become available. And most importantly, the project is also going to fund new after-school activities for Inglewood Unified School District, with mentoring programs, anti-gang programs. I hope they do something with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I hope they do something on entrepreneurship. I'm sure, once the funds start coming in, there'll be a way for us to kind of like dictate how that money is spent specifically. Because I don't think we need to be teaching kids about anti-gang programs. It's not about being anti-gang. It's about having something that you can actually invest your time and energy into. So you don't really need to address the fact that there's gangs. We all know that there's gangs, but if I got something to do that can take my mind away from it and keep me occupied, then I'm good. I mean, just look at the kids who play basketball, who play football. they're not really caught up in the gang lifestyle because of the fact that something has their mind, something has their body, something has their attention. So we can create all kind of programs, but it no matter what, it is good that the project is going to fund new after school activities with mentoring and just different programs being in the conversation in general. Man, they already talking about the Super Bowl possibly being in Inglewood. They also talking about the Olympics coming to Inglewood, the ESPYs. It's all kinds of stuff, man, that's going to be coming into this community. So that kind of, puts me at ease when it comes to the idea of gentrification, but it doesn't because, we still have work to do when it comes to, rent control ordinances to make sure that, for at least 10 years while this project is developing, renters, the people who live here now, they should be locked in to their rents. They shouldn't have to, especially being the fact that they voted on this project, they shouldn't be able to not see this project into fruition and say, yo, wow, I'm actually in the community and I've watched my own community transform before my eyes. They shouldn't be sent their walking papers, you know what I'm saying, because owners want to make a couple $100,000 a year extra. I think that that's whack as hell, especially when most of these owners are slumlords. But if you want to check out my article on the stadium that I wrote for Inglewood Today newspaper, historic article, or my article that I wrote on the gentrification process that may take place in Inglewood, check me out at www.tommybuns.com and let me know what you think. Yeah, so that's going to conclude this week of the Black Friday podcast. I got my baby here, man. I didn't get to record this outro at the studio, so now I'm recording it at the house in my bedroom while my kids is watching Baby's First TV. Yeah, real ratchet, but you know how we do it, man. It's the Black Friday podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Buns. Check us out on www.tommybuns.com. Follow up on this podcast to where you can get more information on the United States versus Bundy in regards to the Oregon standoff. You can read more information on the Inglewood Stadium and then the stadiums in general. Yeah, man. So, like I said, dude, we appreciate you guys for listening every week. The audience is growing. I'm getting nothing but great reviews each week. Appreciate it. Continue to send the support. Continue to send emails with ideas for topics and things that you guys want us to talk about. Yeah, man. So like I said, it's that time. Give us some of that social currency, a like, a share, or a comment. It would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, man, just keep your ear to the street. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Black Friday podcast. It's your host, Tommy Buns. Holla. Peace.
Pull up to the club in the front. Nah, I don't even do that.